if you want to understand what torture is about. That's by the Pentagon statistics. Condi Rice chaired this, and she told George Tenet, go do it, after Abu Ghraib had come out. She had Bush's ear. I believe Cheney is the most responsible, but I think the great issue is this. If we want the rule of law in this country, if we want to stop a police state, it is not good enough. Republicans and Democrats cheered when Obama said, we do not torture. But it is not good enough that Barack and his appointees do not torture. What is good enough is that the foul doctrine of commander-in-chief power, which is opposed point blank to the American Constitution and to international agreements and American laws, passed by the United States of America and signed, the Convention on Torture, be upheld and restored. Habeas corpus is important. The difference between the dark ages, which we have just entered again, and being a regime, not a rogue regime, which is respected around the world, which we have the chance to be with President Obama now, hangs in the balance.
Thank you, Professor Gilbert. Now we'll have Senator Mitchell stand up for his opening statement.
Well, good evening and welcome to Experimental Theater, where the presenters are also the stagehands and carry their chairs and try and make the program work. Let me begin by first agreeing with the obviously correct ruling of the I'm sorry, there was an echo where I was sitting over there, the British High Counselor, the court that determined that the, see, you can't hear me either, can you? Can you all hear okay? Okay. Obviously, the conduct that you described was torture of a horrific kind. There's a little bit of a bait and switch because that's not what was discussed in the meetings that Condoleezza Rice participated in, but let me hit a couple preliminary notes. I'm a little off balance tonight because I wasn't sure if the discussion would be a critique of the movie as theater, discussion of its political charges, or dialogue with, can you hear me? A dialogue with Professor Gilbert. So let me first throw a couple of shots out about the movie. I was pleased to meet Sebastian Doggart tonight. It's not often that I meet a man after I've seen him naked. I would suggest that with some good editing, he has the makings of an entertaining Saturday Night Live skit. On the political charges, I would suggest that hyperbole in service of condemnation is not necessarily a persuasive asset. One question I have is, why are we contemplating war crime indictments against Condoleezza Rice when what we're obviously all thinking about is indictments of President Bush or Vice President Cheney? In fact, I think maybe because there was a fetching, entertaining movie. I should also add that, what's his name, Devin Rattray, actually I think has some musical talent and probably could have made it with an act somewhere between Toby Keith and Meatloaf. But in any event, the story there, I think, was a lot of human interest surrounding about 2 or 3 minutes worth of specific political criticisms. And before I get to attempting to engage them, let me ask if some of you have observed the recent news about developments out of the Obama administration. Number one, that he not only has not yet announced that he will discontinue the practice of rendition, but they are giving indications that they will probably continue it. That they have not confessed judgment to the ACLU lawsuit challenging wiretapping and state secrets doctrine, but that they are vigorously defending against that lawsuit. That, in fact, many of the challenged and hated practices of the Bush administration are not being summarily dismissed or discarded, but are under review, and even the much-touted closing of Guantanamo is sometime a year or more out there, because with the responsibility of leadership and execution of the laws and the actual safety of Americans in his hands. President Obama understands that these decisions are not as quick and easy as rhetorical flourishes on the campaign trail. So, to the charges in the movie, I detect two or three. Number one, clearly there are some people who are liberal that don't like Condoleezza Rice because she became conservative, and I understand that in some circles being accused of supporting, quote, corporate interests is enough for an indictment, but in other circles, not so much. So beyond saying that she supports corporate interests over people, there was some discussion of her granting immunity to the Blackwater Guards. That's legally nonsensical. The Secretary of State doesn't have the power or authority to grant immunity or to block a prosecution. The President has the pardon power, and we can certainly discuss exercises of the pardon power by recent chief executives, including the record of pardons by President Bush leaving office and President Clinton leaving office, but I don't know what it means to accuse her of granting immunity to Blackwater Guards. So now we get to the chaired discussions, where you notice even Professor Gilbert backs away from the specific allegation of tearing fingernails out, because that had to be included in the movie so that everyone would agree, yes, that is beyond the pale and that is torture. But that's, Professor Gilbert didn't endorse that charge. That was something that the movie asserts, and I Googled, I searched, and I could find no published reports, no broadcast reports suggesting that fingernail yanking was part of the discussions. What was there? There was sleep deprivation, there was stress positions, and there was waterboarding. And by all confirmed and published reports, 3 individuals in U.S. custody have been waterboarded. One of them was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And by all reports, that elicited information in 90 seconds of discomfort, intense discomfort, I do not doubt, from which he recovered in minutes. That elicited information that saved hundreds, if not thousands of lives. Maybe it's an easy call for you. It's not an easy call for me. If the safety of Americans, of American fighters, of American citizens was in your hand, maybe that would be an easy decision for you to make. It would not be an easy decision for me to make. Sorry, I'm checking my iPhone because I'm timing myself. What we do know about waterboarding is that the administration briefed the majority leaders in Congress, Democratic leaders in the House and the Senate, and had their tacit approval and not voiced objection until it became more politically popular to criticize the president. What else we know about waterboarding is that in our own troops and special forces training, it is administered to American soldiers to prepare them for what they might encounter. What else we know about waterboarding is that the United States Congress likes to pound the table about it, but has passed up any number of opportunities to specifically prohibit it. They could have introduced at any point, and indeed some attempted to introduce a bill to prohibit waterboarding that leadership never brought up for a vote, because they would rather throw around the vague term torture and conjure up thoughts of tearing fingernails and other horrific abuses that we all agree are beyond the pale in a civilized society. If it were so easy, if it were so clear, where is Nancy Pelosi, where is Harry Reid, where is the United States Congress specifically defining, voting on, and being accountable for a policy to prohibit waterboarding? Again, applied to 3 individuals in U.S. custody. Now, one more note, because I'm going to try not to go over my 7 minutes too long. I hear conflicting criticism here. On the one hand, Condoleezza Rice is accused of being too hands-off. It's your baby, go do it. On the other hand, she's accused of being hands-on, sitting in a meeting and discussing combinations of techniques. Apparently, those meetings were pretty deliberate and restrained because they only authorized waterboarding of 3 individuals. I frankly find it comforting that the highest levels of leadership in the United States government took these issues seriously enough to even discuss whether sensory deprivation or whether sleep deprivation would be part of the effort to get information from a terrorist. We aren't talking about accused bank robbers. We aren't talking about normal domestic law enforcement.